Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am going back to doing my weekly wrap-ups as a weekly wrap-up and not a vlog. I have been having a hard time recording throughout the week. I've been super busy, and so I asked on Twitter if you guys would rather have the standard weekly wrap up or if you guys would rather have the vlogs. And it was kind of a almost 50-50 split, but because I decided it was a little too difficult right now for me to do the vlogs anyway, I'm going to do my weekly wrap-ups this way. So let's start with some stats. I read 5 books this week. 2 of them were arcs, 3 of them were sci-fi, and 2 of them were fantasy. Or I listened to 2 audiobooks and 3 physical. So that is why there's only 3 books in the picture thumbnail. Okay, so let's talk about the first book that I finished, and that would be The Alloy of Law by Brandon Sanderson. Okay, I'm still on the fence about this. I did end up giving it a 3.5. Let's talk about the things I did like about this. So we get so much of the Mistborn story poured into the second era Mistborn, and I loved it. We are still dealing with the Mistborn, and it is still one of those things where not everybody is Mistborn and it's still a birthright type thing. But the other magic system that was introduced in Mistborn towards the end, and I don't want to say what that is because of people who have not yet read Mistborn. It's introduced in a larger way in The Alloy of Law, and I thought it was done very, very well. Now, let's talk about the things I don't like. So if you guys don't know, I used to read a lot of the mysteries where there were police involved and the whole buddy cop thing was a big thing. And I've stepped away from that. I no longer enjoy reading them for no particular reason. It's just not my thing anymore. Kelly Armstrong's one of my favorite authors. She writes those types of stories, and I haven't been able to read them. Anthony Ryan is my favorite author, and he has a noir series that I have yet to tackle because I haven't been enjoying that type of thing lately. So this book, we have Wax and Wayne, and they are very much a buddy cop team. I didn't like that element of this book at all. And I found those moments very boring, pulled me out of the story. Now, if that's something that you enjoy, you'll probably like the second era Mistborn. However, the ending of this book is enough to make me want to continue. I really think that where it ended is going to bring my interest back into play. Sanderson still remains one of my favorite authors, but this is probably just going to be one of those series that I read, happy I read it, and then I'll never read it again. So that's where I stand with The Alloy of Law. Now, the second book that I tackled would be a sci-fi novel, and that would be Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. And I read this book because I really loved Eden. And so many people were saying, if you liked Eden, you should read Annihilation. I also didn't love this book. If you don't know, I rated Eden a 4. This again is a 3.5. So what we're dealing with here are scientists who are going to explore a part of the United States that has fallen into disuse. That's the best way to say that. It is overgrown, and scientists are going there to study why this place seems to be flourishing while other places are dying. And that's kind of the premise of Eden as well. But in this book, we have a group of 4 women who are going to study this place, and one of them, their husband, went to Area X to study it, and he came back changed, very much so. So now she's going in to see what made him change. And there are so many twists and turns in this tiny, tiny book that it was a little hard to keep up with everything that was going on. However, it was very easy to read. So I don't want you to think that I feel this book was too complicated, because that's not the case. But it did take a couple of turns that I was like, what? Why did we do that? But, you know, it is what it is. The narrator of this story is the biologist who is going with the group, a biologist, a psychologist, an anthropologist, and a surveyor. And as you get into this book, you start to see that people are changing and things are happening that are not being talked about. And something happens for one of these people, the biologist, to realize things are not what they seem in Area X. And she starts to delve into the mystery of Area X and find out what's going on, why people are not quite what they seem to be, and why people come back from this place changed in a way that is not good. So it is interesting. The reason I landed at a 3.5 as opposed to 4 or 5 star is because it couldn't keep my interest, and it's very short. And so I would read it for a little while and then just set the book aside. Read it for a little while and then just set the book aside. So what should have taken me a day took me about 3. And so, I don't know. I don't think the Southern Reach trilogy is going to be the trilogy for me. So I'm not going to continue with this, even though it was interesting. If you like sci-fi that kind of goes into eco-thriller territory, then you might like this one. Okay, now for the next 3 books, I have to say I loved all 3 of these books, and I am so thrilled that I have started to pick up sci-fi novels. It's my happy place now. Even though I am still very big on fantasy, I am definitely getting into more sci-fi, and so excited about it. So I finally picked up The First Sister by Lyndon A. Lewis. I've talked about this quite a few times, so I'm very excited to be talking to you guys about it. Now, in this book, I have mentioned before that our main character, the first sister, is a concubine. I knew that this was going to be one of those things that I was going to be either loving or hating. And in this book, I absolutely loved it. The world that is built here is very interesting. And she serves on a ship as the first sister, the head concubine of these women on this ship. And she has been selected as the favorite of her captain, and her captain tells her that he is going to take her away from this life, and she will live the lap of luxury on a world with him for the rest of her life. So she goes to the ship to leave her ship, only to find out he has left her behind. Now, this puts her in a very awkward position of, one, trying to get in her new captain's good graces, two, trying to decide whether or not she wants to become an informant on her new captain, which is funny because they can't speak. None of the concubines can speak. And this is because they are not supposed to reveal the secrets of their captains, their crew. And so it turns into this mystery of why she got left behind, who her new captain is supposed to be. And then there's another point of view from a soldier's perspective, and the stories intertwine, but they are separate in this book until about 3/4 of the way through the book. So it does leave you wondering why these two stories are being told. However, both stories were so intriguing. The other story is a duelist, and if you guys have watched Shadowhunters, you know about the Parabatai bond, or if you've read it, you know about the Parabatai bond. His duelist, there is a dagger who is kind of his Parabatai, and they are non-binary, the dagger character, and then we also get letters from the dagger. So there's kind of three perspectives here, but it's so interesting the way the stories combine. It's so interesting to see them come together in the end. And I absolutely loved this book. And this is the first in a series, so I'm very excited to get the next one. And I would highly recommend this to any fan of space operas, because this is just so fun and so amazing. Now for the first audiobook that I listened to would be The Blacktongue Thief. Okay, so everybody talks about The Lies of Locke Lamora and the humor and the world building and how great it is. And let me tell you, if you are a fan of Locke Lamora, you're gonna be a fan of The Blacktongue Thief, because the humor in this is phenomenal. Now, I'm a plot-driven reader. This is a character-driven story. However, the characters in this are so fantastic, and the fantasy elements are so over the top and amazing. I can see why a lot of people wouldn't like this book, because it is very gutter humor, but I like that. It is convoluted in some ways, but I liked it. And basically, this is one character's quest to rid himself of the order that is haunting him, because he is marked. And throughout the story, it is really just him trying to get through in life. And does he make it? Does he not? But I really, really enjoyed it. And I really think if you like The Lies of Locke Lamora, this is a very good book to pick up while you wait for the fourth book in Scott Lynch's series. And it's the first book in a series as well. Now for the second and final book that I read, oh my God, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. It has been a very long time since I have read a book that had a character I was willing to die for. But this book has it. Now, we are dealing with a school teacher who was a former scientist and said goodbye to that life. His name is Ryland Grace, and Andy Weir's humor is top notch. So Ryland gets discovered by the scientists of the world and told something is eating the sun. Can you fix it? And he's like, I'm a school teacher. I don't know what you want from me. But it turns out that he actually has the knowledge that is needed to actually decipher what is going on and what is eating the sun, what is happening, and where this is also taking place. Also helps to discover what can be done about it and get sent on a mission to save the Earth. And in doing so, we have a first contact. Oh my gosh. So the character that I would die for is the alien he encounters. And this story, the only thing I can tell you guys is it is precious. It is so sweet, so endearing, and everybody wants to talk about bromances in sci-fi and fantasy. This is it. This has the epitome of bromance, and the story is so charming, and I love this book. This is probably going to be one of my favorites of the year. We all know I'm holding out for the Pariah before I say whether or not something is going to be my favorite of the year, but this is going to be right behind it. I don't know that I'm going to have the Pariah as the best book of the year, but it's Anthony Ryan, so it's probably going to be. But I absolutely loved Project Hail Mary. I would recommend this to anybody. Now, the first thing you're probably going to ask is, how does it hold up to The Martian? It is better by far. So, one of the things that I never liked about The Martian was the info dumping, the scientific info dumping. It does happen slightly in Project Hail Mary, but we are given scientific evidence, scientific information broken up by the interactions between Ryland and this alien. I won't mention the name because, you know, I don't want to get into it, but I don't want to get into spoiler territory, but The Martian for me was kind of irritating in the way that it info dumped the scientific information. So I found Project Hail Mary to be the balance between The Martian and Artemis, because Artemis, if you guys have not read it, is just a fun heist novel. That's what it is. So you're not getting the scientific stuff because you're dealing with a heist. And I think that Andy Weir found his sweet spot between The Martian and Artemis with Project Hail Mary. Okay, so let's talk about the books that are coming up. I am reading Shards of Earth by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is for a book tour. And so I do have just a few days to finish it, so I will be talking to you guys about that. And I want to give a big shout out to my friend Fantasy Book Nerd, because they helped me figure out how me as a dyslexic person can read an ebook. Yay! I'm still giving up on ebooks post this, but I have found that there is a dyslexic font on the Kindle app, and I can make the pages yellow, so that does help. It's still not my favorite way to read, and I still find it irritating, so this will be the last of the ebooks that I read, And that might mean that I don't get many arcs because I am a smaller booktuber. I have just about 1,000 followers on Twitter, so it might mean that I'm not getting any arcs, and that's fine. I would rather not get arcs at all than have to read another ebook. So that's where I stand with that. And I was actually gifted, I won an audio copy of Shadow of the Gods. So yay! And if you guys have had a hard time finding it, the code was for Google Play. So you might be able to find Shadow of the Gods on Google Play since you can't seem to find it anywhere else, or I couldn't at least. So those are the two that I'm going to be working on in the near future. This might end my reading for May, even though I had quite a bit more on my May TBR. And at least one of the books, possibly two, are going to be shifted into my June TBR if I can find a way to make them fit certain prompts without having to give up some of the books that I'm very excited for in June. I still need to read Morning Star and Queen of Blood. Those are the two that I am probably going to try and fit into the June TBR, but I'm not going to put Morning Star in the place of Wrath, so don't worry about that. I think I just figured it out. The Empress game might be replaced with Morning Star, so sad about that because I was very excited about the Empress game, but it is what it is. I need to get to some of the books to complete some series, and I need to start the Queen of Blood, so that's where we are. All right, like, subscribe, do all the fun things, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!